Okay, get cozy everyone because we are diving into the world of horse sheets today.
You read that right, horse sheets.
And specifically, we're looking at the Tough 1600 Denier waterproof horse sheet.
It seems like a pretty straightforward piece of equipment.
You would think so, right? But after going through all this material you sent me, one thing is clear. Horse owners have some strong opinions about blankets.
Absolutely. And for good reason, a horse's comfort and well-being are so closely tied to having the right gear.
So true, especially when the weather throws a curveball, which is exactly what this sheet claims to handle.
Sudden showers at a show, chilly nights in the stable, you name it.
But the big question is, does it actually live up to the hype? That's what we're here to uncover.
And thankfully, we've got plenty of evidence to sift through, starting with the Amazon product listing itself.
Oh yeah, and they don't mince words, do they? 600 Denier waterproof.
Right to the point.
Sounds pretty heavy duty though. But for those of us who don't speak fluent horse blanket, what does that even mean?
Well, denier refers to the thickness and toughness of the fabric.
So like a higher denier means a tougher sheet.
Exactly. Think of it like thread count for horse blankets. The higher the denier, the more resistant it is to tears and snags.
Ah, okay, so a 600 denier sheet is practically built like armor.
You could say that. It's a good choice if your horse is, shall we say, a bit rough on their blankets.
Prone to a little rubbing, maybe has some playful pasture mates.
Exactly. Or if you live in an area with, let's say, blanket compromising terrain.
I can picture it, but I'm guessing there's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't thicker fabric mean less breathability?
That's an excellent point, and it's a crucial consideration when choosing a sheet. Because as much as we want durability,
We don't want our horses to overheat.
exactly, it's all about striking that balance between toughness and breathability.
So no using this sheet as a sauna for your horse in the middle of summer.
Got it. Probably not the best idea. Understanding your horse's individual needs and the climate you're in is key when deciding on the right denier.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got the tough part covered, but what about this waterproof claim?
Ah, yes, the waterproof debate. Always a hot topic when it comes to horse blankets.
Hot topic is an understatement. Because reading through these reviews, the opinions are all over the map.
How so?
I'm seeing everything from bone dry in a downpour to soaked through after a light drizzle. It's that confusing, to say the least.
It sounds like we've got some unpacking to do.
Definitely. Because clearly there's more to this waterproof business than meets the eye. All right, so we're back and ready to tackle this waterproof controversy surrounding the Tough 1600 Denier waterproof horse sheet.
Rightfully so. Because when it comes to horse blankets, waterproof can be a make it or break it feature.
And judging by these reviews, experiences are all over the place. Some horse owners are raving about this sheet's ability to handle anything Mother Nature throws at it.
While others are saying it's about as effective as a tissue shield in a monsoon.
Seriously. So how do we make sense of such wildly different experiences?
Well, it's important to remember that waterproof isn't always a guarantee of being 100% impenetrable.
Okay, so there are levels to this waterproofing game.
Exactly. Even the most heavy-duty waterproof fabrics have their limits. And those limits are often determined by the type of weather you're dealing with.
A light drizzle versus, say, a torrential downpour. Those are two very different scenarios for a horse blanket to handle.
You got it. And it's not just about the intensity of the rain, but also the duration of exposure. A sheet might repel light rain for a short time.
But leave your horse soaked after hours in a downpour.
Precisely. And this is where the construction and materials of the sheet itself come into play.
Right. We talked about denier earlier, but is there more to it than just the thickness of the fabric?
Absolutely. The type of waterproof coating applied to the fabric is another important factor.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about the fabric itself, but also how it's treated to repel water.
Exactly. And there are different types of coatings, each with its own pros and cons. Some might be more breathable, but less durable. Others could be super waterproof, but not as flexible.
Ah, so it's about finding that balance again. Toughness, breathability, waterproofness. It's a lot to consider.
Oh. What about sealed seams? I've seen that mentioned in some blanket descriptions. Is that important for waterproofing?
Incredibly important. Think about it. Every seam on a blanket is basically a row of tiny holes created by the stitching.
And each tiny hole is a potential entry point for water if it's not sealed properly.
Exactly. Sealed seams act like a barrier, preventing water from seeping through those stitching lines. Kind of like how a waterproof phone case.
Keeps your phone safe even if it gets dropped in the pool.
You got it. It's all about those small details that make a big difference. So to be clear, even if a sheet is labeled as waterproof, it might not be able to withstand a monsoon.
Exactly. And that's where managing expectations comes in. It's about understanding the limitations of the product and being prepared for those just-in-case scenarios.
Because let's face it, Mother Nature has a way of throwing curveballs.
She does indeed. And sometimes a little extra help is needed. That's why a lot of horse owners swear by using a waterproof spray.
Ah, so it's like adding an extra layer of protection on top of the already waterproof sheet.
Precisely. It's especially helpful in wetter climates or for horses that spend long hours out in the elements.
Sort of like adding a raincoat to your already water-resistant jacket. Okay, so we've covered the denier, waterproofing, and even the importance of those tiny sealed seams. But there's one detail in these reviews that I have to ask about. The Velcro. Specifically, the sheer volume of comments about the Velcro on this particular sheet.
Oh, yes. The Velcro enthusiasts have spoken.
They really have. People are calling it industrial strength and practically indestructible. I mean, it's great to have a secure closure.
You don't want your horse's blanket coming undone in the middle of a night.
Exactly. But at what point does Velcro go from secure to a little too much?
Yeah.
It's a valid question. I mean, you want your horse's blanket to stay put, especially if they're the adventurous type.
Or if you live in a place where the wind has a mind of its own.
Exactly. But I imagine there's a fine line between secure and, well, Velcrozilla.
Right, you don't want it to be a wrestling match every time you put the blanket on or take it off.
Exactly. So, is this super strength Velcro a good thing or a potential problem?
Well, for most horses, it seems to be a big plus. Reviewers consistently praise how well it holds up, even with horses who are tough on their blankets.
Makes sense. A secure blanket means less chance of it slipping, shifting, or ending up who knows where in the pasture.
Precisely. But as with everything, there are some nuances to consider.
Okay, like what?
A few reviewers mentioned concerns about the Velcro potentially snagging the horse's coat, especially those with thicker, longer hair.
I can see how that could be an issue, especially if your horse has a knack for finding burrs and twigs.
Exactly. It's something to be mindful of, especially if your horse has a history of getting snagged.
And what about horses with sensitive skin? Could this Velcro be irritating if it rubs against them the wrong way?
That's a possibility, though we didn't see many reports of that specific issue in the reviews. Of course, it's always best to err on the side of caution and monitor your horse for any signs of rubbing or irritation.
Always better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked denier, waterproofing, and even the great Velcro debate. What's the final verdict? Is this tough one sheet worth adding to your horse's wardrobe?
Based on everything we've explored, I'd say this sheet is a strong contender, especially for horse owners looking for a durable, practical, and budget-friendly option.
Music to my ears.
Yeah.
Because we all know how expensive horse gear can be.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the price tag. It seems like this sheet really delivers on its promise of toughness and a secure fit. Those are essential features for anyone dealing with horses who are, shall we say, blanket challenged.
We've all been there. Whether it's rubbing, snagging, or escaping from perfectly good blankets, some horses just seem to have a talent for it.
They do indeed. And while the sheet might not be the right fit for every single horse or climate out there, it seems to tick a lot of the right boxes, especially for those unpredictable weather days.
Those surprise showers that always seem to pop up at the worst possible moment. It sounds like this tough one sheet could be a lifesaver in those situations.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive has highlighted something even more important than the specific features of this one sheet.
What's that?
It's the reminder that choosing horsewear is not a one-size-fits-all situation. What works for one horse might not work for another. It's all about understanding your individual horse, their needs, your specific environment, and then finding gear that aligns with those factors. So well said. It's about being a thoughtful and informed horse owner, not just grabbing the first blanket you see.
Exactly. Take the time to do your research, read those reviews, ask questions, and most importantly, pay attention to what your horse is telling you.
Such great advice. Because at the end of the day, a comfortable and happy horse is the ultimate goal.
Couldn't agree more.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of horse sheets. Until next time, everyone, happy riding.